Hare Krishna. Welcome to my podcast. It's August 1st, 2023. Yesterday morning, I had the pleasure of interviewing Artur Pawlowski and his son, Nathaniel. Artur has just been targeted and attacked like you wouldn't believe. And he has a sentencing hearing coming up August 9th. So I think it was really important to talk to him and hear what was going on and all what's been done to him. A lot of what's been done to him we have seen on alternate media sources. Of course, the mainstream media wants to say that he's a controversial pastor, that he's defying orders. These orders should have never been put in place in the first place. It was not about keeping you healthy. You have every right to keep your church open. Why should you close your church when Walmart is open? Why should you close your gym that'll actually keep people healthy when Costco's open, when the liquor store was open, when the strip clubs were open? I tweeted about that and I got, look at where I ended up. They didn't like that. They don't like you saying that. So I think that anybody that speaks up strong, you get targeted. And they are targeting him almost out of spite. You know, they put him in bloody solitary confinement and things like that. They've treated him worse than any criminal has been treated, or equally bad. I'm going to show a clip of something. I could watch this all day. I just love when these officers come into his church and single-handedly he tosses them out. We have a little bit of Nathaniel in this video as well.
Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. And don't come back without a warrant. Do not come back without a warrant. You understand that? Intimidating people in a church during the Passover. Can you imagine those psychopaths? Passover, the holiest Christian festival in a year, and they're coming to intimidate Christians during the holiest festival? Unbelievable.
This is the fifth arrest since the pandemic was announced. This is his 15th arrest, all for charges related to doing his job as a pastor, for feeding the poor, for reading the Bible, for keeping his church open, for attending peaceful assemblies. Every time they do this, they're just feeding the flame. My father will grow in his notoriety. He will never back down. This isn't about safety. He's been placed in a filthy cell that he described as the most disgusting thing he's ever seen, that it looks like it hasn't been cleaned in 10 years. So how is this for, he's in quarantine, right? Yeah. This is for health and safety, and they're doing this. This is exposing what it's all really about. It's about control. It's about bowing to the government. It's about tyranny. It's nothing to do with safety or public health or the law.
I would agree with that 100%. So joining me now is Pastor Artur and his son, Nathaniel. Hello. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Hey, hello. Thank you so much for having us on your show.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I mean, Canadians, anybody, well, people around the world, anybody that's familiar with this story, we regard you as a hero, especially from what we saw in that clip. That clip went so viral. A lot of people from Poland, they knew right away. They've seen this obviously before. When all this was happening in Canada, did you know right away? Like, when did you start to think, oh my goodness, something's wrong. This is not right, what we're being told?
Well, first of all, at the very beginning, we didn't know what is happening. We didn't know if this is real, how strong it is. Will it kill, millions of people around the world? We did not know what was going on. But when I received a letter from the City Hall telling me that I must stop feeding the poor because we're in the middle of this crisis, when I received a letter saying that the shelters are shut down and the people are thrown out on the streets and I'm not allowed to feed them, I knew right away. I appealed it to the mayor of the city of Calgary. He did not care to reply. I appealed it to the premier. They did not care. And then I appealed it to every minister in the land, and they did not even reply. At that moment, I knew this is not real. This is a lie. I'll tell you why. Because I said, what do you think is going to happen to 15,000 to 20,000 different individuals facing homelessness that you're going to thrown out roaming the streets of Calgary and other cities in our beloved province. And they did not care even to reply. I work with the homeless people for 24 years. I feed them, I take care of them. And I know from experience that if you don't feed the people, they're going to get their necessities this way or that way. They will whack your mother's head. They will break into a grocery store. They will break into your car, garage, house. So unleashing 15 to 20,000 different people facing poverty, it's asking for violence. It's asking for crime. At that moment, very early on, I knew this is another overreach. This is another attack on our rights and freedoms. And I decided to oppose it. And as you know, I became the first Canadian to get a COVID ticket. And they did a big story, the chief of police press conference, and people were calling me, says like, you're all over the news. And I said, what did I do this time? And it turned out that they used my example of this horrible super spreader pastor that dares to feed desperate people living under the bridges and kicked out from shelters. And they were vilifying me left and right. I knew communism, socialism, or if you will, some kind of a hybrid with fascism is here. And the fight began. During that time, I was hunted down by the authorities, police, health inspectors, bylaw services for a year since that video that you played. For a year, non-stop intimidation, harassments. Over 40 citations during this crazy, unprecedented time that we're facing in globally, not just in Canada. So 5 arrests, of course, over 20 court cases, and unbelievable abuse of power, breaking the Criminal Code of Canada by those in uniformed so-called peace officers, health inspectors, bylaw services, and the politicians.
I asked Nathaniel what it was like to watch his dad go through all this and what it's been like for his family. And here's what he had to say.
Ironically enough, it's sort of been all I know, because this actually didn't start in the COVID era. Actually, when you ask my dad when he sort of saw the signs, it was actually back in 2005 when he was first ticketed for feeding the poor, because in the city of Calgary, the mayor and different politicians, provincial and municipal, and the police decided that it's illegal to feed the poor on the streets. Because it's just, they're going to pass a law to make it illegal.
So if you give a sandwich to a dying child on the streets in public, you just broke the law. If I pray for you, or if I counsel you as a pastor in the capacity of my work without a special permit from the city hall, then I'm breaking the law. I was in shock when police officers and bylaw services showed up at our church services where we were feeding thousands of people, and they said, actually, everything you're doing is illegal. Congregating, illegal. You have illegal signage. I got $10,000 tickets in 2005, 6, 7, 8. I mean, it was 10-year war for having an illegal, controversial, as they said, and offensive sign. Jesus loves you. Jesus is king. So those things were happening. I received during that time over 300 citations, 11 arrests, and over 100 court cases. They almost bankrupted me. I had to give up my houses. I used to be a very successful businessman before. We had land, we had houses. All of that I had to sell to keep fighting with the corrupted, evil, wicked government. So according to them, distribution of printed material is also illegal without a permit. So if I give you a gospel tract, if I give you a Bible, I just broke the law. And they were very serious about that. So we end up in a court, from provincial, QB, criminal charges, you name it. And when I read the Bible in public in Tompkins Park in 2006, I was arrested and charged criminally. I was facing a year of imprisonment for my horrible crime of reading the Bible without amplification to 6 of our parishioners in public. So this anti-Christian sentiment has been going on for a very long time. And I was warning people, I was telling them, listen, this more and more looks like the country that we came from. This is communism. I'm telling you, this is not end. This is just the beginning. Unless Canadians rise up under solidarity banners, solidarity with each other, what I witnessed when I was growing up in Poland, the wannabe pharaohs of today are going to be pillaging, destroying, raping, and murdering our loved ones. It ends when people say, that's it, enough is enough.
We in the news, we perpetuated all this lie. I feel that the news media all around the world is to blame for this psychosis that's happened upon people, right? Because people believe what the man on the TV tells you. And the man on the TV says, stay 6 feet away, put your mask on. And people didn't clue in that that is a muzzle. That is to not make you speak. And one thing that about the churches and small business, they were completely destroyed. Right? And gyms. And my feeling was anything that made you healthy, where you could exercise, or any spirituality, connection, prayer, something for your heart and soul, they deliberately went after that. Deliberately went. They can't, how dare people shut a church without a referendum? I actually have a clip of the way that my news would portray people. Like, this is a little bit older. This is when Jason Kenney was around. But the way that we manipulate how we report things, it made a psychosis on humanity. I'll just show this little clip.
By midday, the peaceful protest took a turn when a small number of people charged the barrier, tearing portions of the fence down. The B.1.1.7 variant is now considered the dominant strain in the province, while the even more highly transmissible P.1 variant is spreading fast.
Restaurants, gyms, churches, they've all been associated with large-scale transmission events. That's the reality. So, it's imperative that again, those settings are mitigated as much as possible.
No, we never provided any proof that the churches and restaurants were having high rates of transmission. How are they having more over Walmart, Costco, and things like that? I believe was that's misinformation.
That's propaganda. You got to remember, you're talking to a man that grew up behind the Iron Curtain under the boots of the Soviets. That's exactly what we witnessed growing up. Even in your clip right now that you showed, the ICU, right? It shows empty hallways. My mom, during that time, during the biggest and the most dangerous times in the history of mankind, she was actually in a hospital, in a unit for COVID. Even though she didn't have one, she was there by herself. No one. Entire unit, the COVID unit, was empty, and she was taking pictures and videos showing us. And yet the media, the propaganda media, the Goebbels propaganda media in Canada, were showing and telling people that hospitals are overpowered, that people will be in coffee shops, on stretchers. I mean, they are criminals. We're dealing with criminal enterprise. And Jason Kenney is just one head of the Hydra. The UCP government, the so-called conservative government, is continuing this madness. This didn't stop. Just because they opened restaurants and you can yell and scream and sing, because as you remember, singing was illegal during that time. At hockey games, it doesn't mean that they're not cooking something else. They put a stop, a pause, but now they want to finish you off. You were mentioning the restaurants and small businesses. You got to remember, pharaohs, they need to eliminate the middle class. Because the middle class are highly educated people, well-traveled, family-oriented. They want to achieve something. They're hardworking business owners. They want to pass a legacy. They want to pass inheritance to their children. Those types of people, if you tick them off, they will fight you. They will hire a lawyer. They will push. Those people, they need to be eliminated. And what we are witnessing right now globally is the biggest elimination of the middle class ever attempted in the history of mankind. And I worry about the children. That's why I'm so glad that you have Nathaniel here, because he represents the generation that will have to fight this hard with our support. What we need is youngsters rising up right now.
What do you hear from younger people? You're in your 20s. What do most of your friends feel about what's gone on?
Majority of my generation has completely drank the Kool-Aid, unfortunately. I mean, we have a generation that's been offered every vice there is on the entire planet. I mean, we've literally given them everything that they could want. Easy access to drugs, to drinking, to sex, to pornography, to every single vice you could think of. And what it's done is it's morally deprived young people. And I believe this is a part of the cultural Marxist agenda that was actually talked about in 1985. They said that they would subvert the West by taking away our values. And I believe that's happened. I mean, our generation is, my generation is just so deprived of everything that is good, everything that's moral, everything that's that represents anything that Canada was built on, right? Canada was built on Judeo-Christian values and freedom, right? So even if you don't agree with Judaism or Christianity, you can still live your life free. You have freedom of religion, you have the Bill of Rights, you have all these things. And my generation doesn't value that. They don't even, I don't think they even understand that. Canada's never had a conflict on our own soil. So they don't understand that your own government can be actually out to get you. Europeans understand that a little bit more. Because through all of human history, you've had governments that were actually out to get the people. So they honestly believe that climate change is affecting the world so much that we're all going to burn down unless we pay a carbon tax, even though Canada produces a minute percentage of the carbon produced in the world, while China and India and these massive populous countries are producing so much carbon, and they don't have a carbon tax, they don't have any net zero agenda. But if Canada does it, we're going to save the planet. It's like this hunger to do the right thing, but they're just so brainwashed and so clueless that they're feeding into an agenda placed to them by the government because they want to do the right thing.
They do.
But they're just completely, it's a virtue signaling.
Yeah.
It's a self-righteous attitude that you don't actually, you're not doing anything. It's like the paper straw thing, right? You have a plastic cup, but you have a paper straw, like as if that's going to help the planet. There's so much that these young people are facing, and they're looking for something else. Though they're starting to realize there's actually a movement now of young people that are, for example, this is just one example, but they're so tired of the radical gender ideology being pushed in schools that they're doing walkouts. They've had enough. And this isn't even the parents behind it. These are students that just have enough of this, and they're walking out of their schools. They're staging protests. There's this entire movement around Canada where young people are just tired of this agenda being shoved down their throats 24/7, and they're saying no more. We don't want this. I was detained and charged because I decided to break a bylaw that the mayor of our city passed that states you're not allowed to protest within 100 meters of a drag event. Completely unconstitutional and discriminatory bylaw. If you look into the law of it, it just doesn't stand a chance. However, it has up to a year in prison. This bylaw, this municipal law has up to a year in prison. It could be a fine of $500, up to a year in prison. So this is what governments tend to do, is they'll pass laws that are completely against our rights and freedoms, but because we can't afford to fight them, what are we going to do? The punishment is the system. To go through the system, we're being punished. Our finances are being drained, our time's being wasted. It's a stress. It's all this stuff that they're putting on us. Why can't you disagree with certain things that the government says? I like to say often now that in Canada, you have your rights and freedoms. Everyone has the rights and freedoms until you step outside the party line, until you start disagreeing with what the government allows you to disagree with. Then you don't have rights and freedoms. So I see often comments on Twitter and stuff like that, these keyboard warriors who are like, what are you talking about? Canada's so free. We can do whatever we want. Well, yeah, you can do whatever you want because you're not disagreeing with the government narrative. Of course, if you agree with the Nazi regime, well, you're not going to be tortured and punished and sent to a concentration camp. If you agree with the Soviet communist propaganda, well, you're not going to be sent to the Gulag.
I'm the son of Pastor Artur Pawlowski, who you will hear in just a minute. I am here today in desperation, a cry for help. I would like to stand here and tell you all the things about freedom and democracy that I like, but I no longer know those things. They have been taken away from us Canadians. Canada has fallen. We no longer have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, or the right to protest or assemble or associate or express ourselves or have free media or disagree with the government. Anyone who does so is arrested, charged, and jailed as political dissidents. My father was just found guilty of inciting mischief for giving a sermon to the truckers when they went and stood for our rights in 2022. A Christian sermon that referenced the solidarity movement was criminal in our government's eyes. A charge that has a penalty of up to 10 years in prison. This case sets a precedent to all Canadians and the world if you allow this to happen, that anybody, including politicians and media, do not have the freedom to say or express what they have on their hearts for fear that what they say is mischief and could be liable to prison. I myself have been charged for preaching and reading the Bible publicly because the government claims the Bible isn't inclusive and is hateful. This is what the Canadian government is doing to us. In my father's case, the Crown prosecutor, and I believe in naming names because our oppressors do not get to get away with this without being named and shamed. So the Crown prosecutor, Stephen Johnston, and Judge Gordon Crink claimed that when Pastor Artur, my father, referenced the solidarity movement in his 19-minute sermon, it was an act of mischief against the government. The very solidarity movement that this parliament reveres and has placards about all over the building.
What happened was I was invited by the truckers to conduct a series of church services for them. In other words, to give them hope. The people needed their pastor. And that's my job. My job is to give people hope. My job is to feed the poor or the hungry. My job is to be with the people, with the hurting. So when they called me and they said, would you be willing to come and conduct a church service? Of course I did it. I did it in Calgary in the evening. Then in the morning, off they went to Ottawa. And then they started to gather in Milk River and Coots. Coots is the point of entry between Montana and Alberta. So I went there with Nathaniel, my son, and with a worshiper. We brought food to those people and we did a church service. We were singing hymns and we were distributing food and we had Lord's Supper together. I delivered a message to the people. Our CMP was there. They were filming me. They were taking pictures. And then I went to them and I asked them if they would open the barricade because the only closure of the roads was done not by the truckers, but by the police themselves. And they did that. And they let us go to Coots. And I did the same thing over there. We had a dinner together, Lord's Supper, singing hymns, national anthem, praying. And I delivered a 19-minute sermon reminding them about solidarity. What I saw growing up, that they don't have enough police officers to stop when the people say enough, it's enough. Stand up for your God and state-given rights. Hold the line. Don't quit. Don't break it. Because the future of your children is at stake. I told them to do it peacefully. No guns, no swords. This is not a violent revolution. You see, we Christians, we don't kill for our faith. We are willing to die for our faith. That's a big difference. A few days later, I stepped out of my house. I was arrested by SWAT team, Calgary police uniformed. I was arrested by RCMP, detectives, undercover police. It was a gong show, you know, like El Chapo of Calgary or Al Capone of Calgary, Canada. I was interrogated for hours, taken to prison, spent 50 days in prison, most of it in solitary confinement, stripped naked, taken to metal cages, taken out of my cell to a concrete cell without water and washroom, kidnapped by the sheriffs, taken to MaxPot for terrorists in Edmonton, and then they took me to a psych ward without evaluation of the doctors and even the knowledge of Alberta Health Services. Completely illegal. Everything they did to me was criminal, just like they are doing in gulags or in North Korea or in China. That's why I call Canada now China, because we're truly living behind the Iron Curtain. So anyway, finally I was released on bail, put on house arrest, which to this day, 16 months later, I am still on house arrest. I am not allowed to leave my house after 7 p.m., 12 hours curfew, 12 hours house arrest. I am not allowed to do certain things like other free people are allowed to do. I have a probation officer. Every time I want to do something with my kids, I need a special written permission from my probation officer. Why there is such a huge, crazy attack on me? And I kind of was thinking about it. That's a good question. It's a very valid question. Why they would target a pastor? Well, and it hit me. During the past 3 years, they did everything in their power to bring hopelessness, terrorizing people, bringing fear, segregating, separating, isolating. What I did and what I'm still doing is I'm bringing people, Canadians, together under the umbrella of faith, which they hate, under the umbrella of God that they cannot control, under the umbrella of unity, coming together, being humans, being friends, being family members, restoring hope that no matter how bad your today may look like, tomorrow is a brighter day. And I think that's the message that they hate the most, because what they want people to be in desperation. They want people to be subdued. Good slaves don't have hope. Good slaves obey orders. And then a man like me comes in, and Nathaniel and others, and we just simply say, well, stand strong, hold the line, because God is bigger than all of those villains combined together, that in the end, truth will win. And I think that's why there is such a huge attack on the people that are just giving people hope.
Pastor Artur, what can we do?
So the number one thing that people can do is to talk about the story, to spread the story around, to let the people know what is happening and name names. Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, she could stop this, but she chose not to. She has mechanism to stop this. She can bring amnesty bill. She can do an investigation from the Minister of Justice, from his office. There's a number of things that she can do it. The lies of Stephen Johnston, the special crown prosecutor assigned to all the cases of the truckers. He's a pathological liar. He's a deceiver. He's a manipulator. There should be an investigation done against this man. So she has mechanism that she can use legally to put a stop to this craziness, but she's not doing it. She is working for the globalist entity, and she is more than happy to forward. There is over 3,000 people like me in the province of Alberta that are being still subjected to this insanity. 4 men in Coutts that were there are standing in prison almost 2 years.
By the way, there are still 4 guys locked up in jail without bail, without a trial date. It's been a long time. It's been over 500 days. And these 4 guys, around about in their 40s, they're fathers, they're working class guys, they have children they need to get home to. They are still locked up. So we can't forget about these guys.
Innocent until proven guilty has been thrown out the window. So that's the number one thing. Call the office of the Premier. Talk about this case. Harass mainstream media and other people. Let the story come out, bring the truth to what's really going on. That's the number one thing. Second thing is everyone can call the office of the Premier or the office of the Minister of Justice and Solicitor General. And also we need your support. We need you to come. August the 9th in Lethbridge, there is going to be a church service. We are doing a church service before my sentencing, so people can come and show their solidarity with what is happening to us. And of course, financial support. I mean, we can't fight this without the support. Even if we get the lawyers to help us out, we need to survive as a family. We need to keep pushing. I just had to hire a lawyer, Brendan Miller, that was the lawyer that was doing the inquiry in Ottawa, to fight for Nathaniel and 2 other men that has been charged for opposing pedophilia and grooming of the children in the city of Calgary. That's $10,000 retainer and $525 per hour. I mean, those are enormous things. And Nathaniel was, when he said, he's absolutely right. The taking you through the process. The process is the punishment. When they charge you with the bogus things, you need to hire a lawyer. They are wasting your time. People are scared. They cannot afford. So the process taking
Yes.
you through all of those ringers, the hoops, the roadblocks, the craziness, the bureaucracy, the injustice of the lies of the government agents is the punishment.
They make the battle so hard, it's overwhelming. We become battle weary for a battle that we shouldn't even be fighting.
That's right.
How they come for regular Canadians. I wish you all the best. I do encourage people to go to streetchurch.ca for more information. And Nathaniel's website is truedominioncanada.ca to learn more about what's going on and to help. I'll be thinking about you and we'll be watching and supporting you and sending you our love on August 9th. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. God bless.
So we want to send positive vibes, positive thoughts as August 9th approaches. We'll be waiting to hear what comes of that day and what the sentencing, what the outcome is. We hope for a good outcome. We hope for some reason and sensibility. So I just want to send positive vibes out there that hopefully some sense will come to someone who is in charge of making decisions. I also just want to take a second to just make a comment on the way I look in that video. I just put a bunch of makeup on my face. I'm not in all the right places, sat by a window and turned on my camera. And I was like, oh, I looked like a cross between a basset hound and Michael Jackson when he turned white. So I'm well aware I look absolutely horrible in that video, but it is what it is. I'm putting it out there. I don't need any comments going, what happened to you? Did you go 5 rounds with Mike Tyson? I know, I get it. I just happen to look like that. So that's why I'm redoing some of these intros. I don't know what happened to my face, so I apologize. Maybe don't look at me. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you can go to anitakrishna.com and sign up for my newsletter and just sort of, I can keep you up to date on some things that I'm up to. And I love to hear from people. So please send me an email there at hello@anitakrishna.com. And we will talk to you soon. Thank you for watching this broadcast or podcast or whatever you want to call it. Bye-bye.